Being a single mom and doing it all by yourself is brutal. Learn the brain and energy tools to get back to your center and overcome your challenges. Welcome to Single and Doing It All. This is your host, Muriel Falous. And today I have someone who's also in the coaching the parents business. But before we go there, I want to remind you that the membership is up. So if you're struggling with challenges that are very specific to moms and even single moms, but moms in general, you can join the membership at singleanddoingitall.com. It's still on pre-launch price. And well, by the time you listen to that, it may not be, but it's still going to be very affordable. The other thing I wanted to ask you is if this information, what we're sharing on this podcast, helps you, share it with another mom. If one person shares it with one person, you don't know what kind of miracles we can accomplish. And it's not a lot of work. So now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest to you today. And I'm going to put my glasses because I need to read. Her name is Barb Roba. She's a licensed mental health counselor and has earned a master's degree along with her certificate of advanced study in school counseling. She's the founder of Behavior Corner LLC, which can be found on the web at behaviorcorner.com. And she faithfully shares weekly parenting tips on her fan page, which is also named Behavior Corner LLC, and also in her parenting group called Raising Kids, Behavior Solutions That Work. That's what we all want. Her area of expertise is found working with young children and their family to develop positive parenting and behavior management techniques. So welcome, Barb. I'm very happy to have you here with us today. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for having me. What a pleasure it is to share the stage with you today.
I'm really excited. Before I ask you some specific questions, I would love to hear about your journey and how you ended up doing what you're doing today, to give the audience an idea of what you've been and where you've been, and who you are.
Yes, well, I feel like it's meant to be where I have landed. Life will take you where you need to be. Actually went to school, thought I wanted to work in a law office, and graduated with a degree to do so, and promptly returned to school to receive my education degree in school counseling, which then blossomed into the mental health realm because as I saw in the schools, there is a lot of work that
Well,
can be done preventatively with parents to help their children succeed, to turn into responsible, respectful members of society, all starting at home. So, although I continue to work with the kids at school, because that is truly, I just love doing that, I see that there's so much potential that awaits families when we can work together when their kids are young, and then they grow by using positive parenting foundations.
absolutely. And what I would like to add for our audience is that if your kids are teens, it's not too late. It's never too late. And what Barb is going to share today can be applied to your children, doesn't matter what age they are. Right, Barb?
Tomorrow is a brand new day. That's one of my sayings throughout life. Whether your kids are 2 or your kids are 18, and
Yes,
still living under your roof, tomorrow is a new day. And you wake up and you try again and you learn a little bit more and you do a little bit better from the day before. And that's okay to say, yep, tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to try again.
exactly. And that's where I tell my moms to not feel guilty about what they didn't know because they didn't know. But once you know, you're responsible to apply what you know. That's where you can step in your power. So what in the school system, I know it may be a little bit different than at home, so we can talk about both places. What do you see as far as children acting out as being the triggers or the reasons or the mistakes that adults make that send them into a full acting out mode?
You are right. If I could like address the first part of what you said, school and home can be drastically different. Parents tell me, you're so lucky my kid behaves for you at school. They come home and they lose it. They're yelling, they're screaming. It's like they hold it all together just until they get home. Yes, school is full of rules and routines and expectations. And I tell parents, if you're struggling with your kid's behavior at home, take it as a compliment on some level because they're comfortable at home. They feel safe at home. They're with the people that love them unconditionally. So they're able to let out some of their frustration and stress from the school day, which kind of leads me into the last part of your question. Triggers for kids, whether we're talking about at home or school, I see that kids who have too many expectations in their lives, too many activities, too many directions given to them at one time, people feel, or parents or adults feel that they can just say to their kid, I want you to do all these things and I expect you to do all these things, but we sometimes don't stop ourselves and say, maybe it's a little bit too much. Maybe I should just give one direction instead of three to my little one. Or maybe there's too many activities on my middle schooler's schedule right now because he or she is burning out and they're tired and it's too much. So I do see that as a common trigger amongst kids at home and also at school.
That's cool. Thank you for this answer. And it's true that we don't always realize that we can overwhelm our kids with expectations and demands. It's very easy to go there because we also, as parents, have a ton of expectations from other people and demands from life. And
Yeah,
sometimes,
I feel even personally, there's some days that life seems to take over and there's
yes,
so many things that need to be done. And then we're barking orders at our kids because we're stressed and we almost get caught up in the moment when that happens. But
yes.
to stop and reflect on how we're portraying ourselves to our kids is going to help because they truly are valued members of our family. And when they feel that way, and we're able to be empathetic with all of the expectations that they do have in their own little lives in combination with our lives, it's going to go much better on both ends.
And that's where I feel that it's important to recognize the signals of stress in our body as parents, to know that we're there and to recenter
Yes.
and look at what we're doing.
Yes, to be in the moment, to be
Yes,
mindful of that is
yes,
very important. And that's a trait we would want to teach our kids from
yes.
a very young age, or even if you have teenagers, start that now.
Yeah, because it can totally change the outcome of a situation. I know I see it with my kids and with my son too. Now he's becoming more masterful at managing his emotions. And when he's feeling too triggered and too angry, he's just extracting himself, going into his room, and spend the time letting go and feeling the anger. And I'm really proud of him for that because
Yes.
he's just turned 16. It's not easy to do that at this age.
It is not. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on in their brains. They're still developing at this age.
Yes.
It is a lot to process. So kudos to him.
Yes. I won't stop repeating that in this podcast that I'm so proud of him for that because it took me years to learn that myself.
And I'm going to take a gamble here. I'm sure your teaching and your approach to him has made a big difference. Working in the schools, there's so many staff members. Depending on how a child who could be triggered by a situation is approached, will
Yes.
dictate the outcome.
Yes.
So our approach as adults to our kids at home, in the community, in our school systems is so important in teaching them how to manage a potential trigger in their life.
Absolutely. And it was a learning curve for me too, because I saw as a parent exactly where I needed to shift my behavior and my thoughts, my emotions, because I became very aware of the impact that my reaction was having on his reaction.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with adults, really. I always talk about a disco ball, and we have facets, and depending on what is active in us, it will activate the same facet in them. So being mindful of that is very important.
Very. And something I always say, even to my own kids, the only person you can control is you.
Yeah.
So when you're able to self-reflect on how you're approaching your child or the number of expectations you're giving to them, anything that you are doing, you are in control of you. You're not in control of them, but you can change what you're doing and reflect upon what you're doing, which in turn will help your children.
Is there a number of expectations that we should not go over at one time, like 2 or 3 or at any
It
moment?
really depends on the tolerance of your child, the age of your child. It even goes down to basic needs as far as how many hours of sleep does your child need at night. You know, I speak with parents and some kids get 8 hours and they're good, yet others need 10 to 11 hours.
Yeah.
So obviously the 8-hour kid could have a few more activities in their day because they're not going to burn out as quickly.
Yeah.
So it really does depend on the individual and their age and their ability to persevere. But then you also have to be cognizant of bringing it back to their basic needs. How much downtime does your child need? How much sleep do they need? And that could even vary from sibling to sibling.
Yeah. And it's great that you're saying that, because we tend to forget. We tend to forget that our kids are different if we have many, and we tend to forget to do that ourselves.
Yes.
It's very easy for parents to be on the go all the time and not do enough self-care. So you're also a model for your kid. And is there something that helps parents to be more aware of this kind of needs for their kids? Is it just a question of watching them when they slept that many hours or when they did this or that and see how they react?
For me, when I'm working with, again, my own children and with parents of young kids, I always say to them, you know, if your child is having a particular tough day and it's stressing you out, that's a good signal to say, wait a minute, what is different about today?
Okay.
Did we get one less hour of sleep last night? Did we rush through lunch and my child didn't have enough time to eat and now they're hungry? Did my kid come home with a full backpack, which actually just happened last month, threw the backpack down and stormed off? Wait a minute, I haven't seen you all day. What's going on? You know, taking that minute to just think, what could it be? I see this backpack, through the backpack. It's got to be something about school. I'm going to give him a minute and calm himself. And then I'm going to ask if there's anything he needs and to tell me what's going on. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't with teenagers, right?
Yes.
But really taking a step back to self-reflect, okay, this isn't the norm for my child. What's different? What's going on? And that day, my son had I think it was 5 subjects worth of homework that night. And
Wow.
the overwhelm had set in. And here he comes through the door in the bad mood. But referring back to what I said, he's comfortable at home. He knows I'm going to love him and support him and help him through this.
And that's actually the ideal situation. I know it's hard for us parents to live through that, but you want that kind of scenarios, because that way they stay out of trouble in society and express what they need to express in a safe place. Especially for teenagers, it's ideal. That way, you know, they don't get in trouble outside.
Correct.
Yeah.
One technique I have used with parents of younger kids, if they're trying to get their child to express themselves, and that is sometimes hard, even for young ones, because they don't have that language ability yet, and they don't know how to process all these feelings that they're having. But to create a colored card system. So red on an index card could mean I'm feeling angry. Blue means I'm feeling sad. Yellow means I'm feeling happy, or whatever colors you assign to it. And they could put that index card in a shoebox. I've called it a feelings box before. And you know how your child's feeling. They can pick their color card, and they don't have to verbalize it to you at that point, which actually transfers over nicely when you're talking about the middle schoolers and then high schoolers, turning that feeling box into a thought box or a conversation box. And even with my son, who's actually a preteen, I'll write him little notes about his day, and he's more apt to write me back than to have a full-blown conversation with me. So if you're struggling with trying to work with your child, whether it's their triggers or their feelings or their thoughts, putting it in a non-verbal way is really comforting to some kids.
It's a great idea, because even as adults, when we are triggered in the moment, it's not the right time to talk. And we don't know what we're feeling sometimes. We just know we don't like what we feel. So it can even be as simple as plus or minus, feeling good or feeling bad, or feeling neutral. Those three things, even if you don't go in depth. It's such a great idea, also the discussion box or topics box, because when a parent would, let's say, you can ask your kid what disturbs you, and they can put it on paper, and it gives you time to really read it and sink it in your body without reacting in front of him, and calming all the fears, the whatever is coming up for you before you address the subject. It's an amazing idea.
And you find a mutual agreeable time with your child. When they're ready and you're ready, you can have a conversation. But in the meantime, that thought or that feeling stays safe. As I've said to kids, it's safe in this box, and you know we're going to address it. And it provides them a release as well. It's in the box. I got it out, and it's there. Now I can move on, or at least start to move on.
And it gives them the idea of feeling heard, because they need that. A question that came to my mind as you mentioned to scheduling a time is the question of respect, because parents always expect respect from their kids, but very few parents bring it in the other direction, like scheduling a time with your kid that's convenient to you and to him. Because usually parents just dump stuff on their kids and don't really leave that space for when is it good for you. Do you see respect playing a big role in kids acting out, feeling disrespected, or feeling that they don't have a voice?
I do. Kids tell me when I see them at the elementary level, because that's where I work. So we're talking, around that 6, 7, 8-year-old age. If they're not getting along with a particular adult, well, why should I? They don't respect me.
Yeah.
And that's right from their mouths. So it's not my assumption or my processes, throughout the years of, I'm just giving you my opinion. No, the kids are saying that. My kids have come home before and say, my teacher doesn't like me. My teacher doesn't respect me. So how are we going to fix that? There has to be a restorative way to go about that, because yes, that will inhibit behaviors.
Yeah.
Kids want to please, and they do well when they can. And I truly believe that. If they're feeling, though, unsettled with that adult, they're not going to be as apt to react to a difficult trigger in the same way with another adult who they feel more bonded to, more respected.
And it's even more like, it's bolder for teenagers, the fact of I don't feel respected, what I see. And when you can install it as young as 7 or 8, it's great. But even if your kid is later in life, like 15, or you can still start, and it starts with recognizing that you have a being in front of you, not just your child, a being, both on a physical, emotional, spiritual being. And it changes the whole picture, because then it's natural to think that they have their own guidance, and you respect that, while putting limits. Of course, you're here to keep them safe, but it makes a huge difference.
It is. And if you can show respect to them and even verbalize that by saying, I respect how you're feeling, I respect that you need time, it solidifies it for them a little bit more. Okay. As long as you're following through and doing it consistently.
Yes. I was going to ask you how. And
Yes.
you just answered. You read my mind. So we talked about meeting the needs, both physical and or emotional, and seeing where they are. The need for respect. Is there a third mistake that you see parents make that really triggers behaviors that are difficult with kids?
I feel like this one borders on the line of respect, although it's quite different. And I think you'll see where I'm going with it. I'm going to use the word empathy. And for me, as a counselor, as a mom, as a human, as a friend, you know, having empathy, true empathy for someone and their experiences is a game changer. So being able to say to your child, I truly understand that you feel sad because blank happened, and you can connect with them, it's going to bring the walls down, so to say. It's going to de-escalate them a little bit because they can take that breath with you.
Yeah.
Okay, you do know how I feel. Thank you for telling me that. Like that, they're not going to be able to verbalize that as little ones, but they're going to feel it because someone's on their level emotionally saying, I've been there. I know how you're feeling.
Yeah.
I feel in our busy multitasking lives, the empathy piece kind of goes away. And I hear, and I've been guilty of this too, I'll be honest, you know, knock off whatever you're doing. I told you to do this.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in fact, I could have gone back and said, I know you are really trying hard to finish, I don't know, whatever task you can come up with right now. And I know it's important for you to finish. Because I'm respecting how you feel, and I know how that feels because I'm using empathy, I'm going to give you 5 more minutes, and then we're going to need to follow the direction. Just helping them hear that I get it and I've been there, yet I also have this expectation. It does take that edge off a little bit.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely, because it's also giving them permission to feel whatever they're feeling.
Yes.
That's huge. Because what I notice in our society, and I used to do that with my kids too, is if they're feeling something that is painful, me as a mom, and you're talking about empathy. So what I notice, there are two kinds of scenarios. I have a lot of moms who are like me, oversensitive, and what is called empath. That means they absorb the energy of the other and feel the pain for them. In that case, you need to be able to put a limit and not do that. But when you give them permission to feel whatever they're feeling, and even if it's something that brings pain, being able to sit with it, to give them permission to go through a negative emotion so they see that they have their place in our life, because it's always a message of something, and not wanting to fix right away or to feel for them is huge, because then they don't repress, because we tend to learn in our society that anything that's negative, oh no, go take antidepressant, go take ibuprofen for pain, etc. So we're not leaving space for pain, and sometimes pain is a catalyst to something.
Yes, it is. And you are so right. Our society just tends to push away those negatives. It's our job as parents to help name those feelings and then also explore and discover, what do you do with them now?
Yeah.
Okay, we have this empathy going, and I understand you're sad or you're frustrated right now. What can we do about that to help you feel better? And it's not necessarily fixing the problem, but it goes back to coping and knowing it's okay to have these feelings I'm having. How am I going to cope with it? Then we'll deal with the problem.
Yeah.
But when we dismiss all of that, it could create a bigger issue from what originally triggered our kids.
Oh, yeah. Because they push it under the rug, and that sometimes comes back and
yes,
hit you in
and
the face.
the bonding that we all want with our kids suffers because we've pushed it away again. We've pushed it away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major point.
Yeah.
Are there any, do you give parents some ideas of coping techniques to propose to their kids for negative emotions or difficult times?
I do. I have a whole colored set of coping cards that I've developed. They're colored, fancy directions, and they just speak to kids because it has a visual and then it
Yeah.
has short little explanation about how to do the actual skill. And that you can tell I get so excited over them.
No, but
Because,
that's great. Visual is very great because we don't
yes,
know, we don't learn our emotional system, how we function.
yes. And these cards, they travel with us. They can go in your glove compartment in your car. They can go in your child's backpack. They can go in mom's purses. They can go in your pocket. And there are so many ways that can help a child to calm, whether it's blowing on a pinwheel, that's one of the cards, reaching up to the sky and pretending their belly is a balloon and their belly goes out and then it goes back in as they reach down to the ground, listening to music, having a quiet spot at home. I work with parents on pretty in-depth plans to meet their individual needs of their child.
Okay.
Because what you find, and we've already touched upon it a little bit, every child is different.
Yes.
Whether we're talking about basic needs or we are talking about the number of activities a child can do, the same is true for coping. So what works for me, which is going for a run, is not necessarily going to work for you.
Yeah.
Maybe what you like is taking a bath, and that helps calm yourself down. So because there are so many ways to cope, I present parents with a variety of approaches, and I encourage them to introduce no more than 3 to their kids, because
Okay.
then they can really try each skill to help their child cope, to find out which works. A pretty fun one that works for my son when he gets angry. I don't know if you've seen those colorful, they're called pom-poms in craft stores. They're very small. They're like
Yeah.
cotton balls, but they're
Yeah.
colored. So I bought some sparkly ones, and he was mad at his brother, which happens quite a bit. And I said, take these and throw them as hard as you can. And he
Oh
looked at
my
me weird.
gosh.
It
That's
like redirected him. The thought itself redirected. Go ahead, throw them. They're soft. Like I said, they're like cotton. They're not going to break anything. They're not going to hurt anyone. And he
wow.
threw them and he looked at me. I'm like, do it again. Pick it up and do it again. He loves it. Like it's his go-to when he's feeling upset. Get the pom-poms, throw them as hard as you can. It's safe and it gets his emotions
It's a
out.
great idea. I'm going to start doing that in my house because I
Yes.
taught them to punch their mattress,
Mm-hmm.
to breathe deep, of
Yep.
course, while making noise with your
Yep.
breathing. Or we have a punching bag outside in the backyard, so they go there sometimes. I myself noticed that when I was extremely angry, I love to break things, but that's not safe.
Nope.
And I was trying to find a way to throw things
Yes.
to let the anger out.
Yes.
I also have let's say a kitchen towel, and you slap a corner on the wall. That also takes care of that. But the pom-poms, amazing idea. Thank you. I'm
Yes.
going to
Well,
go
you're
back.
welcome. But like you said, the breathing, of course, that works too. Breathe in, hold for 3, breathe out. There's different combinations, but it doesn't work for everyone. So find what works for you. Be a good model of that. Find what works with your kids, not for them. They
Yeah.
have to have a say in this because they
Yeah.
have to be interested and they have to see the benefits as well.
And it's funny that some days something is going to work, like you can write your anger out. Another day, don't even talk about writing. I feel like punching.
Of course.
So knowing yourself and teaching your kid to know themselves and know what they need in the moment, and have, like you said, options in your house.
Yes.
It's just investigating what calms them down because they know.
They do. And it's going to be so helpful as they grow. And think about when they become adults and leave your home. You want them to be able to cope with stress on the job, stress in relationships, stress driving a vehicle. Not they're going to be throwing pom-poms at work when they're adults, but
Yeah.
they're going to have a sense of how to regulate those emotions and to deal with stress. And it all starts at home.
It's a great introduction. I mean, it's going to be useful for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, even as adults, we are triggered and we feel stress.
Yeah. And it's normal. We're human beings, and there are many ways. I know that for myself, I tap in my car. We're only on that point. But sometimes I do weird noise. I love doing weird noise in my car to just evacuate that energy. So if somebody sees me on the side, they must think I'm crazy, but it helps.
But
It
it
does.
works for you, and that's what matters.
Yes. Now I would like to ask you a question about one of the pillars of our coaching here at Single and Doing It All, which is self-love. I notice that most people that I talk about to don't even know where to start, what it means to them. So I always love to ask my guest for her definition. What is your definition of self-love?
For me, it's a really big element of saying that I do something to care for myself. Because as a mom, if I'm not meeting my self-care needs or my self-love needs, my family's going to suffer. My profession is going to suffer. So when I reflect on loving myself, I ask myself another question. How can I show that I love myself? Well, it's by taking care of myself. So for me, it goes to self-care.
Yeah. And it probably varies in the moment too, whatever you feel like doing in the moment.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. If I'm having a very stressed day, I am going to go for that run that I mentioned. If it's been an okay day and I can take a half hour before I fall asleep and I can read a book or a magazine, then I'm going to do that.
Yes.
In the summertime, which unfortunately where I live, it's very cold. But in the summertime, I love to garden and sit outside in the sun. So I do have different things based on the seasons on what I can do to show myself that I do love myself and I accept myself, which in turn helps me be a better mom.
It's absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
Before we leave, do you have one parting advice or parting tip to give our audience as far as helping their kids not to act out, to have a more harmonious relationship at home?
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, just breathe. That's kind of my mantra for
Yeah.
all parents, including myself, because if we can take a minute just to take a breath before we react to our kids, it's going to make a difference. I mentioned that child at school, depending on what staff member interacts with him or her, it's going to be different. You know, yesterday my little one was crying, my older one was to blame. Well, if I didn't just stop for a minute and decide how I was going to approach it, I could have had a bigger problem of misbehavior on my hands. So self-care and breathing will then in turn help your kids' behavior.
Yes.
It will.
And in fact, let's all take a breath right now. You just made me feel like doing that.
Yes. It just helps you think more clearly.
Yes.
Stop yourself before making an impulsive decision or impulsively yelling because of a situation that's going on at home. Or if you get a phone call from the school, just take a breath for a minute and collect yourself. And it will make a difference in your child's behavior, and it'll make a difference in the relationship you have with your kids.
Yeah, because you respond instead of react.
Yes, and that's huge. You want them to be able to respond instead of react in their own lives as well. So you're being a model.
And that's easy enough that anyone can do it anywhere. So there is no excuse.
No, I actually do a lot of breathing in my car. Like you mentioned what you do in your car. Like that's what I do. I do my breathing, you know?
Yeah. Yes. I want to thank you for all the great tips and advices that you gave us today. It was very rich and it's full of ideas for parents that they can continue investigating on their side. And really, I'm grateful that you're here and that you shared your expertise with us. Where can people find you? I mentioned it in the bio, but we're going to say it again here and I'll put it in the description.
Absolutely. So my website is behaviorcorner.com. They can also email me at barb@behaviorcorner.com. And my Facebook page, Behavior Corner LLC. And you did mention my closed group. So that is all connected through the Facebook page. So they could also join me there. And I am in both groups posting tips. We actually have a very funny Hump Day Wednesday for all humor going on in our group. So definitely come on over and check that out.
Oh, humor is great.
Yes, especially in the world of parenting.
Laugh at ourselves.
Yes, we need that. That's therapy sometimes.
Yes. Thank you, Barb. And for
Thank
our
you.
audience, don't forget, share this episode with other moms because it's full of tips and tools. And I'll see you next time in the podcast or anywhere else I interact with you. Have a beautiful day. Bye. Mwah.